Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witness leadership that they are living in a modern-day spiritual paradise. I'm your host here, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as a witness throughout the 70s and 80s. As I do, I like to issue a trigger warning. Everybody's at a different stage of this journey. We try to have some fun here, try to heal. Each episode features sometimes very serious subjects, sarcasm, humor, and more. Please note, nothing said here is ever meant to offend you on your journey, hopefully out of Jehovah's Witnesses, to be candid. Well, travel got switched around for me, so here I am for my regularly scheduled walk through paradise. The governing body has made it really easy on me this week by releasing this month's episode of JW Broadcasting. Imagine my delight when I saw that the host was none other than future King Stephen Lett himself. How they haven't mothballed this guy by now is truly shocking. I'm just going to say it. Imagine a worldwide company, a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 100 company, much less an organization claiming that they alone can offer us life everlasting. Imagine a company choosing a spokesman like Stephen Lett to get their messaging across. I mean, it's life or death. Let's roll out Steve. Seriously, give this some thought. You want people to buy what you're selling, so you roll out Mr. Lett. I'm sorry, Brother Lett. And I gotta tell you, as I watch this, I'm guessing Apple or Nike's stock would plunge overnight. But nonetheless, here is Jesus Christ, King of Jehovah's Witnesses, thinking that the best way to save lives today is to have Stephen Lett represent him and speak for him here on earth. You just can't make this stuff up. And it is moments like this that makes me want to retract everything I've ever said on this crazy show about a PR department running this organization, because somebody needs to be fired immediately. Jesus says he could make the stones cry out if he needed to, but instead he landed on Stephen Lett. It continues to blow my mind, folks, but stick around. There's a reason King Lett is our host this month. Prepare for the absurd. Prepare for the governing body passively addressing their own comments and behavior. Prepare for King Stephen to justify, pontificate, and gaslight the millions, if not billions, that Jesus died for. I've had to watch the greater part of this update several times. I know I need hazard pay because I couldn't believe it. I want to say here and now, the governing body is watching us. They're watching, they're hearing, they're reading, and they're seeing much of what the XJW community is doing out here. I know we're all under the control of Satan and Satan's world, but they're watching. Yeah, there are confirmations that they have Bethelites watching online forums. They're watching YouTubes. They're watching social media. And at this point in the show, I'd like to say, hey, fellas, we know the sisters can't be involved after all. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here in Surviving Paradise. And I also want to offer a follow-up question. Shouldn't you be doing something more constructive with Armageddon looming? Shouldn't you be out, I don't know, saving people's lives? I've been looking for almost 2 decades, and I still can't find the account where the apostles spent a good part of their days spying on the Pharisees, or maybe the Romans, or even those wayward apostate Jews. But alas, folks, this month's broadcast proves once and for all that they're watching. Oh, they're watching us. And they're very sensitive for future kings. They have embraced that they have reached a sort of, celebrity status in Satan's world. Each personality, the way they look, even those that have mysteriously disappeared. Wink, wink, Tony. No doubt under an NDA, so, Tony can keep his monthly stipend coming. He's awfully quiet, but money dictates. I say it far too often, but I continue to be blown away at times. This religion is barely recognizable from the one I was in. I found myself during the August 2025 J-Dub broadcast, I found myself humming Living Color's song, The Cult of Personality. Remember that one? The Cult of Personality. Catchy, great song. Such profound lyrics when you think about how they could be applied to Heaven's 11 in upstate New York. So sing along with me. Here's a snapshot from Living Color's hit. They said, quote, "And during the few moments that we have left, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand. Look in my eyes. What do you see? The cult of personality." I know your anger. I know your dreams. I've been everything you want to be. Oh, I'm the cult of personality. End quote. What a song. Sorry I started to sing there. The August 2025 JW broadcast begins with Stephen Lett telling us we are all going to learn about generosity. We get the standard preview of the entire broadcast that we get every month, and we are then whisked away to Stephen, sitting at that familiar desk, dropping an introduction that confirmed everything I just said. They're watching. Are you ready? I don't know how to tell you this, but Stephen Lett has somehow found something I didn't think any of the 11 of them understood on the governing body. And dare I say it, Stephen wants us to know he has a semblance of self-awareness. I know, did you fall out of your chair? Stephen Lett, self-awareness? Oh yeah, somebody got in his ear. He starts this month's spiritual feast by saying, quote, "Humans are born with a strong inclination to imitate. In fact, very young infants have been observed imitating facial expressions. That's amazing." End quote. Yeah. Stephen wants us to know that kids imitate people, and they even imitate facial expressions. How appropriate from Mr. Lett, wouldn't you agree? Newborns imitate things? You don't say. But hold tight. Hard stop. Folks, and I'm sorry for those who hate the laughter. I'm going to do my best to not chuckle all throughout this week. First, I'm sure what Stephen Lett meant to say was that young infants imitate the world's or maybe even Satan's facial expressions, right? Since it was this very future king who told us that babies are, and I quote, "little enemies of God," end quote. So I'm sure he meant to tell us that these brand new cuddly infants were already acquiring demonic personality traits and facial expressions. But he seems to have forgotten that he told us this in the past. Why do I say that? Because what he says next cost me 2 ribs. And not in the "I'm going to create a perfect naked woman" kind of way. No, it cost me ribs from laughter. The same guy that told us babies, little babies, were enemies of God, then says this, end quote. Excuse me, quote. I'm getting confused already. He says, quote, makes me think of an experience I had some 40 years ago when Susan and I were in the circuit work. A sister told me that her little 5-year-old son was looking in a mirror and making various expressions with his face and eyes. His mother asked, "What are you doing?" End quote. I'd like to firmly hold on to whatever you may be sitting on. Please hold on. If you're listening to this crazy show and you happen to be on a treadmill, consider stepping off the treadmill for a moment. If you're operating a vehicle, please consider pulling over. Because what comes out of King Lett's mouth next, forever immortalized on camera, is one for the ages. No, he doesn't give us the date for Armageddon finally. It's even better. He then tells us this 5-year-old boy looking in the mirror doing weird facial expressions in front of his mother says this to his mom, quote, I can't do like Brother Lett. I'll never be a circuit overseer, end quote. And now I own a new computer monitor because my old one was covered in the coffee I shot out of my mouth and nose while watching this. If you've ever wondered if King Lett's bizarre facial expressions and voice inflections were by design, well, there it is, folks. There it is. And he is so proud to tell Jehovah's Witnesses that some random unnamed 5-year-old boy, allegedly, was trying to be just like him, just like Brother Lett. My mind immediately went to the years of bizarre memes, the photos, and so much more that this guy has given God's people. And that poor kid trying to do the same thing at school to his teachers and classmates. I'll bet that went over well. And the subsequent parent-teacher conference that took place where the teachers told this sister, his mom, there was something wrong with your son. There's something wrong. What a witness she must have given the teacher, explaining to her that her son was copying a guy that was chosen by Jesus Christ of the Bible that visits their kingdom hall a couple times a year as a circuit overseer, and that the same guy would soon be invisible in the sky, wearing a toga, riding a white horse, and well, look, it's awkward. He would actually be aiming arrows at the teacher's head if the teacher didn't join them at the Kingdom Hall next week. At which point, the teacher realized there was actually something wrong with the entire family, and she never met with the parents again. He did, however, alert the school nurse and counselor, and they discussed alerting the authorities. Oh my goodness. Stephen Lett on camera, telling us kids want to be like him and his weird facial expressions. There it is. But he's not done. He then says, quote, well, I'm sure he soon learned that voluminous facial expressions are not a requirement for circuit work, end quote. I sure hope he did. Otherwise, there's a bunch of circuit overseers out there with some really bizarre facial tics. Or is there a 40-something-year-old man now, the 5-year-old, rolling out Stephen Lett facial expressions at conventions? Or maybe at a local circus, depends. Or in intensive therapy for the tic, who knows? How can they let this guy on camera? How? How is Stephen Lett still being rolled out to Jehovah's Witnesses? But in what is a clear message to Jehovah's Witnesses and proof that they're paying attention to all of us out here in Satan's world, King Lett says, quote, it could actually be a disadvantage. By the way, Thank you for putting up with me all these years. End quote. Aww. Hugs all around. Humanizing the governing body on camera. Isn't that sweet? He's just a little old man, and kids want to be like him. They want to contort their faces and inflect their voices in weird, bizarre ways just like him. But thanks for putting up with him. Until, of course, Jehovah's Witnesses, awkwardly find out that he actually puts children in danger in his organization. He actually allows children to be hurt. Then he covers it all up and doesn't tell the authorities. It's all proven, folks. Aside from that. He continues with the imitation illustration and how we all learn to walk, talk, and more by looking at others. Blah, 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 duh. But please pay close attention. This August 2025 JW broadcast is strategic in nature. Don't fool yourselves. This one's a big one. I know I use that far too often, but this one's truly big. For anyone paying close attention, this broadcast is an overt effort to walk back the negative feedback they've undoubtedly been receiving about King Stephen Lett and his comments on babies being enemies of God. Oh yeah, they're walking it back. In my opinion, this is not an accident. It is certainly not a coincidence. Imagine these government authorities or these courtrooms where they roll out this guy on camera in front of a jury or in front of government officials saying babies are enemies of God. Oh yeah, we're going to walk that back immediately. This is a calculated talk he is giving to recover his and by extension the governing body's reputation, to turn them warm and fuzzy. Not just to the audience of Jehovah's Witnesses, but to all those people they confront in court battles, government agencies, and more. Nobody wants to see the guy shepherding babies, calling them enemies of God, and putting them on par with Satan. He says there is one thing that is difficult to imitate. And he quotes Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, about being imitators of God. He continues, by design, to walk back or attempt to clarify his statement about kids being in the same camp as Satan, enemies of God. He says, quote, because we are born with imperfection, we aren't even born with an inclination to become an imitator of God. End quote. Okay. I see what you're doing here, King Lett and your 10 best friends. It's been a long time coming, incidentally. You've addressed your bizarre facial expressions, and now you're going to address your most infamous comment ever. He takes us to the ancient holy book, back to Genesis chapter 8 and verse 21 of the New World Translation, which says, quote, for the inclination of the heart of man is bad from his youth up, end quote. There it is. There it is. Clarification. Walking it back. Just like saying, they're never embarrassed and they never have to apologize for their many, many mistakes. The governing body marched out Stephen Lett on camera to expound on his famous one-liner that babies and children are on par with Satan. They're enemies of God when they're born. And just like that, with a couple of verses and a couple weird facial tics, he's fixed it. All better now. It's all better now. It only took 3 years. Anyone paying attention knows exactly what this is, particularly elders who gave local needs parts. The writing committee worked in a passive-aggressive explanation for Stephen's comment, clipped and posted all over the internet, that brought him so much infamy and heat. They can't have governments and secular authorities believing the governing body sees children as enemies of God, right? Can't have that. That's going to cost us money. So here they are, folks, with a very strategic, calculated effort to walk it all back and clarify that kids, they just need to imitate Jehovah. And as you saw him say, maybe even imitate King Stephen Lett in his weird face. There it is. Sorry if that didn't come out right a few years ago. We don't want this video played in courts of law. Not when it comes to kids. We got enough problems. The opening moments of the August 2025 JW broadcast, in my opinion, is some of the best stuff these guys have put out in ages. So I strongly encourage everyone to go watch at least the first 15, 16 minutes with King Steve. Stephen Lett on camera smacking his own hand. He didn't apologize and he's never embarrassed. Thanks, Jeff Winder. Clarifying and saying, thanks for putting up with me all these years. And it's okay if your kids want to be like me. What a fantastic surprise this month. This is the best. He goes on to apply all of this to Jehovah's Witnesses leaning on Jehovah. Yeah, not Jesus. It's odd. Jesus isn't mentioned once again. To be imitators of Jehovah. And they show a video of an Asian couple praying and standing in front of a book cart. That's how you imitate Jehovah. Jehovah's standing in front of the great celestial book cart / chariot up there. Not exactly imitating Jehovah or Jesus or the prophets, or the apostles. Oh boy. But nonetheless, we're imitating Jehovah. Be like Jehovah, everyone, including you kids. And if you want to be like Stephen Lett, you can do those weird facial expressions too. Not pictured, by the way, in this broadcast, in the spirit of imitating Jehovah. Well, not pictured is that time Lot was imitating Jehovah with his daughters, or King David was imitating Jehovah by killing women, children, and their livestock, all the animals and stuff. Except for those times, aside from those times. Otherwise, imitate Jehovah. Get yourself a book cart. He then goes on to say, quote, the more we learn about Jehovah and the more we will draw close to him, the more we are like Jehovah. And the happier we will be. End quote. Folks, I'm not sure that's a good idea. I don't think that's good counsel from the governing body. Hey, if you want to stand in front of a mirror like the 5-year-old boy and try to copy Stephen Lett's facial expressions, good for you. Good on you. Get after it. By the way, if you don't mind, post your memes of you doing this or your reels. But listen, for a Jehovah's Witness or anyone else, imitate Jehovah? Are you sure you want to imitate Jehovah? Well, I mean, it's interesting counsel, but maybe, I guess I'm going to throw out here, and maybe there'll be a future video where Stephen walks this one back too, but maybe don't totally imitate Jehovah. Like, not totally. Don't do everything Jehovah does. Imitate him, but don't really imitate him, for example, don't do this. At Psalms 137:9 of the New World Translation, Jehovah in imitating means this, quote, happy will be the ones who seize your children and dash them against the rocks, end quote. Now, please, listen, folks, Stephen Lett's saying imitate Jehovah, but kind of. Don't totally imitate him. Don't do that to kids against the rocks, okay? And I'm trying to help the governing body out here Maybe, I don't know, don't do stuff like this either in imitation of Jehovah. At Leviticus 26, 28, and 29 of the New World Translation, remember how Jehovah wanted us to live forever in the nude, eating plants? He had a change of heart here at Leviticus 26, where imitating Jehovah meant, quote, I will intensify my opposition to you, and I myself will have to chastise you 7 times for your sins. So, you will have to eat the flesh of your sons, and you will eat the flesh of your daughters. End quote. Imitating Jehovah in his holy book. So, Stephen, kind of imitate Jehovah out there, my witnesses, but, well, kind of. And no suggestion of imitating Jehovah is incomplete in any way. There he is, without including my guy Noah. Remember that time Jehovah had him gather up the entire animal kingdom, only to take them on a year-long boat ride, then kill those very animals he saved from the flood once they got off the ark? Remember that weird thing? Imitate Jehovah. That made sense, right? Save them so you can kill them when we land. At Genesis chapter 8, verses 18 through 21, imitating Jehovah was this, quote, So Noah went out, together with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives. Every living creature, every creeping animal, and every flying creature, everything that moves on the earth, went out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to Jehovah and took some of all the clean animals and of all the clean flying creatures and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And Jehovah began to smell a pleasing aroma. End quote. Yes. Jehovah's Witnesses and everyone watching the August 2025 broadcast, imitate Jehovah. He had a 500-year-old guy wander the earth capturing animals, building an ark by hand, in his spare time preaching and saving lives, only to hit dry land after a year at sea and then slaughter the very animals he saved from drowning. Because, well, the almighty, invisible Jehovah, did you know he has a nose? He's got a nose. And he is really big on the sweet smell of animal flesh burning. It was a pleasing aroma. Jehovah has a nose. Even if he did just keep them alive for a year on the ark, only to have a few minutes of sweet-smelling burnt animal flesh. Woo! Good thing here. Imitate Jehovah, Stephen Lett says. And, the question, of course, is, did he at least let them make babies first so they had more animals when they landed? The Bible doesn't say, folks. It gets into some other things like where they put them on the ark and how they fed them, but never mind. Just says that Noah took some of the animals he just saved and started barbecuing them. Don't get caught up in the details. The key here is imitate Jehovah, because the smell of burning animal flesh was very pleasing to Jehovah, as he's got a nose. Okay. I don't think Stephen Lett and the writing committee put, enough thought into these talks, but that's another story. We're all tracking, King Lett. We're just a couple minutes into this. We got 5-year-olds doing your facial expressions. We've got imitating Jehovah. We've got little enemies of God. That was a little harsh. So maybe don't totally imitate Jehovah. Just kind of, sort of, if you're a witness. Just kind of, sort of. Please, by the way, do not burn the family dog on an altar because you just happen to know from the Bible that Jehovah loves the sweet smell of burning animals. Okay? Okay. We're all in agreement. Let's shake hands. However, if you want a practical or, practice session with facial expressions like Stephen Lett, that's totally okay. He just gave us the go-ahead. It's unbelievable. They're just a few minutes into this, and it's already completely jumped the tracks. King Lett continues, and tell me if you know where this is going. He says, quote, in our publications, more than 40 qualities of Jehovah have been identified and discussed. But in this discussion, let's focus on just one. Imitate Jehovah's generosity. Did I do his voice well? End quote. Please note what he just said. What's important here is, according to him, their publications, not the Bible. Apparently, the Bible doesn't tell them these 40 qualities. Where'd they get them from? I don't know. He says they're in the publications. But put that aside. The governing body wants us all to know what it means to be generous. So focus, people. He continues, quote, generosity is an aspect of Jehovah's love. Jehovah is the most generous giver in the universe. Let's talk about this. Eons and eons ago, Jehovah was alone. And even though it's impossible for us to comprehend, he wasn't lonely or lacking anything. But because of love, he generously chose to share the gift of life with others. He decided to become a father, a creator. Logically, he began by creating a son with whom he could directly enjoy fellowship. As we know, this son became known as the Word, Jehovah's spokesman, but then at some point in time again, not because of loneliness or lacking anything, but because of love. He chose to further expand his family with angelic sons, end quote. Stop me if you're familiar with all of this. It's all because of love and generosity, because Jehovah doesn't need any of it. He doesn't need us. He doesn't need anything. This is just because he's loving and he's generous. But then he says something so interesting. Quote, then with time, because of love, he again chose to expand his family. These children were a lower form of life, but were made in his image. We are talking about Adam and Eve. Without them, none of us would have been born. End quote. Yeah, indeed. Adam and Eve were made in Jehovah's image. We just learned that Jehovah had a nose. He loves the sweet smell of burning animals. Thanks, Noah. Just listening to him so earnestly share all of this, I'm not going to even remotely run from it. I got uncomfortable. I winced. Hearing someone say that out loud, what he just said, my God, is it embarrassing? Does he really believe this? Yeah, he does. He is leading all of us down the road to tell us that life itself is proof of Jehovah's generosity. He just explained why we're on planet Earth, our entire purpose. He goes on to talk about the planet Earth, oxygen, the sun, water, quoting scientists, the same scientists that went to college, incidentally, oh my goodness, and says, quote, Jehovah picked the perfect location for Earth, often called the Goldilocks zone, end quote. What? Wait a minute. What? I'm going to confess I took no time to look this up. I don't got time. The Goldilocks zone? Has anyone else heard of this? I laughed out loud. And I immediately went, oh, Stacy, don't be stupid. Look what he's doing. Look what he's doing. He's really trying to get a lot of mileage out of himself, King Lett, and the other 10 guys on the governing body really loving kids. It's subtle. It's woven through this entire broadcast. The Goldilocks zone, even Goldilocks, all with nary a mention of the 3 bears. We know the story, whose ancestors Noah may have just burned on an altar because Jehovah loved the smell of them burning. Again, I'm going off the tracks, but you get the idea. The Goldilocks zone? But we see what you did there, King Lett. Another low-key reference, I'm sure he got it somewhere, to a kids and their children's stories. And I got to say, at this point, I thought, wow, The writing committee back there is on their game for this one. They're on their game. They're dropping reference after reference in here. We like kids, folks, even when we're explaining the earth. He continues by talking about Jehovah's generosity and the proof of it in our bodies, our skin. Really weird. Aren't we lucky it isn't like denting a car, he said? Wait a minute, what? Have you seen mine? Imagine what we would look like, he says. He then wants to talk about the miracle of perspiration and showing someone sweating. There's a B-roll of someone sweating in the video. But he follows this with a very real, and I mean real subconscious message they want Jehovah's to visualize and see, Jehovah Witnesses, to see and walk away with by saying, isn't it great that water doesn't get into our bodies when we take a bath? Wait, huh? Okay. And he lands the point on video, go watch, by showing a baby in a bath. And it's an AI baby. It's blatantly AI. I thought, why would they do this? Why not a B-roll of a baby in a bath? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute here. Nicely done, guys. An AI baby, no danger, no kids were harmed in the filming of this video. Got it. The message in the August 2025 J-Dub broadcast is clear. It's clear. They're even using AI babies. We take care of babies. We don't put them on thin. Yes, Mr. Kids Are Enemies of God is getting his chance to show us he didn't really mean it. Not really. Babies are cute, people. They're cute. They're not really satanic. And I don't know how anyone watching this broadcast can miss this. It's blatant. I picked up on it within seconds. By this point, 7-8 minutes into the broadcast, they've had several references to babies. This time an AI baby. No kids were harmed in the filming of this video. We don't harm kids. They are blatantly doing Stephen Lett damage control this entire episode. There are babies everywhere. Go watch it. He goes on and on about Jehovah's generosity with food. He talks about grapes, the 10,000 varieties of grapes. He clearly doesn't understand agriculture or botany but Jehovah gave us 10,000 plus different varieties of grapes, and I immediately realized I, Stacy, have always been the problem when I was a Jehovah's Witness. I'm the problem. Is that a Taylor Swift song? Who wants to sing? I had no chance of staying in this cult. It was never going to happen. And you may say, why? Because at the very moment he said 10,000 grapes, I would have raised my hand at that very moment and asked a question. Brother Lett, I can't do your facial expressions, but I have a question. It would have went something like this. Hey, Brother Lett, did Noah gather up the 10,000 varieties of grapes and keep them on the ark with the animals? I know everything was underwater for over a year, so almost all plants were killed. So why don't we ever talk about how Noah was also the ultimate botanist and farmer? That would have been me, folks. I'm sorry, I got a distorted brain. Do they ever think about this on the writing committee? Am I alone? Feel free to make fun of me. I deserve it. You want to talk about 10,000 kinds of grapes? Where the hell did they come from, Stephen? How do you get them? We all know that he's totally off base. But what happened during the flood? Was there a second ark you don't tell us about, hauling around the plants and agriculture? Oh, okay. Somebody punch me in the head. I'm the problem, and I know it. I'm the problem. I needed to just nod my head and drool at everything these guys say. And I would now, even today, still be out front of a book cart. That would be me, quote, imitating Jehovah because, quote, he's so generous. Just play along and nod your head. But all of this is leading all of us to exactly where you have already likely guessed he wants to take us this month. Generosity. And as he says on camera, gift giving. He wants us to know that gifts need to be practical. And he even as an example. He says, he even has an example. He says, quote, for example, a puppy might be a wonderful gift for someone in a rural setting, but is a terrible gift for a Bethelite. End quote. Oh no. Oh no. Did the governing body just give a passive-aggressive local needs part in this update? I think they did. Did some Bethelite just want a puppy back there in New York? Or worse, actually snuck a puppy into their room? You gave up having kids to go to Bethel, and they now want to be damn sure you're also giving up pets. Pets aren't welcome, so here it is. It's not practical. Not at Bethel. This update is one for the ages. But go back to generosity and giving practical gifts. Okay, Steve. He wants us to take care of those in need by being generous. He quotes Proverbs 3:27 of the New World Translation, which says, quote, do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it, if it is within your power to help, end quote. And yes, folks, you know where my mind went. You mean like the people you're letting rotting in prisons or living in poverty? Oh my goodness. Does he understand Proverbs 3:27? Gonna go out on a limb. I couldn't wait for his application. It sounds, by the way, almost like a low-key demand from him. Given to those who you should give to. Is that where I am reading this? And instantly I'm thinking, well, that verse doesn't seem to be very, generous by nature. It's more of a command. Do not withhold doing good for those with whom you should, if you have the power to help. Never mind that they don't apply that day in and day out. We should. But I'm going to guess he knows exactly what he is asking for. He says, quote, in addition to helping brothers directly, we can indirectly help them by making donations to the worldwide work, end quote. And there it is. The foundation stone and message of the August 2025 JW broadcast. He continues, the governing body, quote, the governing body prayerfully strives to use wisely these precious, dedicated funds, he really emphasizes that, to help our brothers who have been afflicted by natural or man-made disasters and who urgently need kingdom halls and assistance in many other ways, end quote. What? Oh no. This has just gotten so bad. Your house is destroyed. It's gone. In California by fire, by flood in Texas, in the many other countries. Your house is gone because of an earthquake or a hurricane. Everything you own, your clothes, your food, maybe someone you love. But according to Stephen Lett in the JW broadcast of August 2025, you should be giving to the worldwide work because what those same people need who've lost everything, what they really need is a kingdom hall. Not water, not shelter, not food, not clothing, not medicine. What your brothers surviving a disaster really need, according to King Lett, is a kingdom hall. You need a kingdom hall. Incidentally, a building that the governing body will own and then sell when they deem it necessary. Built and maintained with, as he says, your generous gifts, your cash. Jehovah's Witnesses are literally funding their real estate empire, all under the belief that they're just being generous. Like that time Jehovah gave us all noses so we could smell things too, including burning animal flesh. At this point in the broadcast, I wanted to stop the video, and I wanted to get on the phone, and I wanted to call every Jehovah's Witness I know that is still in the organization. And look, folks, I wanted to scream at them to wake the hell up. Wake up. Wake up. He's on camera doing this, asking for money to build kingdom halls in times of tragedy. Kingdom halls they will own, they will sell and profit from. Wake up. I try not to get fired up on this, but I have a lot of friends who are still witnesses that are in construction, that are engineers. You know how this works. He continues. He next says, quote, speaking of the need for kingdom halls, as just one example, please look at these pictures from the Philippines. Here are 6 before and after photographs. What do you think was the cost of these 6 simplified but dignified kingdom halls? Pause. $21,000 US. Please think about this. Jehovah's physical gifts, such as the rain, sunshine, and oxygen, are recurring. End quote. I'm going to get it together. I'm sorry, folks. I'm an emotional guy. I'm going to pull myself together for a second. He continues, quote, what's one way of imitating this aspect of Jehovah's giving? Well, 1 Corinthians 16:2 says, on the first day of every week, each of you should set something aside according to his own means, so that collections will not take place when I arrive. In harmony with these scriptural principles, many have chosen to set something aside each month by scheduling recurring online donations. End quote. Take a minute. I know I need one. I'm getting fired up all over again. And let this sink in. The organization that used to rail against televangelism, that has said they would never ask for money, Jehovah publishes the Watchtower. They said that if they had to ask for money, they would just stop printing the magazines, and so many more, has just marched out one of their kings and asked Jehovah's Witnesses, even those undergoing tragedy and disaster, to budget in a monthly payment to the 11 men in upstate New York, currently building a multi-million-dollar movie studio and settling court case after court case against children who've been harmed, all on your dime. I've covered this before, but they have a website page that allows you to enter your banking information and send them monthly reoccurring payments. You see, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're grateful for his generosity, including the fact that he lets you breathe, he said it, not me, or that the sun shines, or that there's rain to grow food, or maybe flood the earth, and even oxygen in your lungs. As Stephen just said, if you really appreciate that generosity from Jehovah, you will set up a reoccurring payment on his website. You wouldn't want Jehovah to stop letting rain fall, would you? Or you wouldn't want Jehovah to suddenly take away oxygen, would you? Remember those illustrations of babies drowning in the flood in the My Book of Bible Stories book? You wouldn't want that. Again, why don't you, my friend, budget in a reoccurring payment to the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses? I'm sure there isn't anyone back at World Headquarters that runs all the finances, remember the asset companies in Ireland, that are at this point, late in 2025, budgeting and forecasting for their next round of projects, right? Need cash to do that. Set up reoccurring payments. Jehovah lets you breathe. This is one for the ages. And I'm going to say it again because I'm so fired up about this. Wake the hell up. You are part of a scam. I'm going to point you to Romans 8, 38 and 39 again. The only scripture Jehovah's Witness knows. Read it carefully. Notice there's nothing about reoccurring payments. He then wants to talk about Jehovah's generosity with spiritual things and starts with the Bible itself. As he says, quote, "Where would we be without it? Lost, hopeless, floundering. We would have to learn by experience, the school of hard knocks. We need at least 2 lives to live, one to practice and the second to perform." End quote. What the hell is he saying? I mean, what? What? Who's on this writing committee? This very comment flies in the face of all of their own doctrines. What happened to universal sovereignty? What happened to free will? By the way, are we currently experiencing Satan's first life, his first practice run? The people writing this stuff, folks, they've lost their marbles. They've lost their marbles. They must write this stuff on a pad in the middle of the night. Who wrote this and marched him out in front of a camera? They just blew up all their own doctrines. Without the Bible, we'd be lost and floundering. We'd need 2 lives, one to practice, the second to perform. What? And incidentally, if you think that's crazy, think about their doctrines regarding the 1,000-year reign. We're all going to make it through Armageddon, but we're still being tested because Jehovah's going to let Satan out for a second life, to perform. Because Jehovah, after 1,000 years of watching you and me eat kiwi, just isn't sure if we deserve to be there still. The reader of hearts, the God of love. These people have lost their marbles. Somebody get to New York and take the keyboard or the pen away from whoever's on this committee. And is the Bible really that important? I can access your library online, King Lett. I recommend doing this before setting up any reoccurring payments, by the way. And in your library, I found dozens of comments from you like this one. From the Watchtower of December 15th, 2022 on page 15, quote, "How will we be helped if we learn to trust in Jehovah and his representatives? Now is the time to learn to trust in God's way of doing things by not second-guessing the direction and decision of the elders. When the Great Tribulation strikes, we will be ready to obey, even if we receive instructions that seem strange or illogical." End quote. This is a cult. Folks, come on. Not a mention in that reference, by the way, of this Bible thing. The quote that I just read you from the 2022 Watchtower says to just obey Stephen Lett and his friends, even if it seems what they're saying is crazy. And it's official, folks. The August 2025 J-Dub broadcast is straight up crazy train. But just wait. He's got more about generosity. He says, quote, next, think about the Holy Spirit, end quote. It too was Jehovah being generous, by the way. Then we go into Jesus' ransom sacrifice as a generous gift from Jehovah, with the highlight being this. And again, for the thinking people out there, see if you can discern what he's trying to do here. Oh, and keep in mind, you should be generous. And I'll admit, I must have rewound this part of the video 10 times. I still can't believe the levels the governing body is going to now. Stephen Lett says this, quote, what if you were tied to a chair and forced to watch the torture and execution of your most beloved child? That would be horrible. Of course, Jehovah was not tied, but because of his great love for us, he restrained himself and allowed the torture and execution of his most precious son. End quote. I'm speechless. I watched it 10 times at least. You and I need to be generous. Sort of like when they ask us to shun our kids. And by the way, send them money. That's how you show them you're generous. And by the way, don't just send them money. Set up reoccurring payments and send it monthly. After all, Jehovah took one for the team by watching his son be tortured and killed. Never mind, apparently Stephen missed a few things, that this was all Jehovah's plan to begin with. Jehovah allowed it. It was Jehovah's plan. See Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. This was Jehovah's best plan, by the way. This is all he could come up with. But he did it for you and me. So as you contemplate that, dear friend, set up reoccurring payments to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Send money and say thank you. After all, as Stephen just said, this isn't a practice run or a practice life. This is the only one you get. So send money and make sure it's reoccurring. We'll do a direct withdrawal. We got it handled on this end. Not sure if the Holy Spirit's involved in that or not. These asshats send children to their deaths constantly for medical reasons, with damaged emotional and mental health from being hurt. Persecution for loyalty to their cult in some countries results in death. But hey, folks, listen up, listen. Send money. Send money. And make sure we can pull it right out of your bank account on the same day every month. You see, Jehovah was very generous, and he took one for the team by watching Jesus be, quote, tortured and killed. Thank you, Brother Lett. What a nice message for the kids watching the August 2025 JW broadcast. And thank you for all of this counsel on how to be generous by setting up reoccurring payments to you. Sort of like I do with my electricity bill. He finishes all of this insanity by saying this, quote, that is the ultimate example of generosity, end quote. And forgive the emotion, I get a little fired up. I still can't believe what I watched this month. But I'm going to say this boldly here. These 11 men in upstate New York, they are really, truly hurting themselves at this point. They're doing irreparable damage. Will it be everyone? Will Jehovah's Witnesses disappear? No, it's not going to happen. Not from where I sit. But this is going to impact us some. It's going to impact some. They are doing incredible damage to themselves. It's not going to stop some from buying into their program for generosity, but I guarantee there will be those that see through this mind-numbing insanity that they rolled out this month. I want to remind you that you and I did. At some point, something woke us up. And in what looks like a throwaway August JW broadcast from 2025, a thinking Jehovah's Witness may just wake up. So I encourage all of us, especially with those who still love people that are inside, have hope. I really, at this point, believe that the governing body has reached what might be the bottom of the bottom, the depths of the depths. And I say that, and I just know it's going to get worse. It's probably going to get worse. But this is something to behold. Just imagine, speaking to the spiritually minded people, imagine Jesus Christ, King of Jehovah's Witnesses, asking the Jews, or maybe even you remember her, that one widow in Jerusalem. Imagine him walking over to her and saying, those 2 coins are nice, but could you set up a direct deposit program? Because, well, I need to build a kingdom hall. I'll eventually sell it and make a profit, but direct deposit really helps me out. Imagine him looking at his apostles and doing what Stephen Lett just did on camera. You know, something like, hey, fellas. Hey, my apostle guys, I need you to set up reoccurring payments. We need more kingdom halls. And oh, by the way, you should really do it right now. Set up that account so my Father knows you appreciate breathing, because he lets you breathe. Or show him that you're glad it rains. See that widow over there? See her over there dropping those 2 small coins? Now there is someone my Father loves. She is generous, just like him. And she just set up a reoccurring payment. Can you imagine that? And then when the Apostle Peter asked him for her backstory, well, what's that woman's story? Jesus would just say, hey, Peter, it doesn't matter. You go and set up your reoccurring payments. This is just one for the ages, folks. I really try to stay out of this territory, but every now and then I just can't. I understand cognitive dissonance and being conditioned with fear. I understand it. I lived it from the time I was 4 years old. I've been out 16 years now. But I'm going to say this anyway. God, I'm so hopeful. I'm going to say this anyway. Jehovah's Witnesses, wake up. Please wake up. There's no amount of hair on your chin or pants on your legs or toasting that makes up for what they're doing to you. Beards, pants, toasting, and oh, by the way, reoccurring payments? They've got your banking information? Contemplate this. When is the last time these guys gave you an earth-shattering publication? New light from heaven that didn't involve common sense, like letting hair grow on your body. When's the last time you got something life-altering from heaven from these guys? You've been sending money the whole time? What are they doing with it? Set up reoccurring payments to this organization because it rains and you're breathing and stuff. That's the talk. Go watch it. I've got to believe that many Jehovah's Witnesses, if they even bother to watch the August 2025 broadcast and actually listen and pay attention, not be on their phones doom scrolling while it's playing, I got to believe someone, at least one, will sit up straight in their chair when they hear this guy. Not everyone, but somebody. Aside from all the stupidity this guy generates on camera, the organization is begging for your money. In the now long gone book, Jehovah's Witnesses, Proclaimers of God's Kingdom, on page 351, we were led to believe the following, quote, those who are accepted for special full-time service at the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses all subscribe to a vow of poverty, as have all the members of the governing body and all the members of the Bethel family there. End quote. You can't tell looking at Stephen on this broadcast. Check out the jewelry and the suit. By the way, you can't have a puppy at Bethel. A vow of poverty? Set up reoccurring payments? What? This finds no support in reality. You can see this with your eyes. Take one look at the World Headquarter campus and take a look at the construction site on their multi-million-dollar movie studio. No one up there, including the governing body, is living in poverty. But be generous. Jehovah's letting you breathe and it rains. I want to remind everyone that asking for Jehovah's Witnesses to be generous with their cash was an annual request. This is how Jehovah rolls. He lets us breathe and expects us to thank him with each breath. For years, every November, some of us may remember this, the Watchtower Magazine and Study featured an article encouraging Jehovah's Witnesses to be generous with donations. You remember that? Came every November for a long time. Near as I can tell, the final time was the Watchtower of November 2018. But that was only because they leaned into more effective ways to beg or ask you to be generous, including, you guessed it, JW Broadcasting. How about the website? There's a link on the page. You can enter your credit card. Also mentioned on that page are bank transfers, conditional donations, and charitable planning, which includes putting the Watchtower in the donor's last will and testament. I'm sure they'll give him an attaboy when they resurrect him, right? How generous. But this August 2025 JW broadcast harkens back to memories of this same guy, Stephen Lett, doing the same thing from the May 2015 broadcast just over 10 years ago. Remember that one? You remember where he said that they never beg for money, even as he then goes on to beg for money. And he's back in 2025 asking you to set up direct withdrawal payments. But on to King Lett telling us there are other ways to be generous, including with compliments and things like forgiveness. Not sure if this is a coincidence, but many of the B-roll video shots on the broadcast feature people from Asian countries. I don't know where they're going for here. I thought it was odd and it didn't seem accidental. There's a lot of it. Not sure what to do with it. You be the judge. He goes on to talk to Jehovah's Witnesses about being generous by being hospitable, offering your home for people to stay, having get-togethers, etc., etc. You know, the stuff that doesn't cost money. Send them that. Standard stuff we know really only happens with people within their own JW social circles. Don't fool yourselves. There's cliques and kingdom halls and congregations. He then rolls out a family from South America, telling us a heartbreaking story where the husband is brutally murdered in the driveway in front of the family, with his last words telling all of them to stay with Jehovah, begging Jehovah to protect his family and his daughters. One of the girls, the sister, now an adult, relates how her other sister was so strong. God, I'm going to just throw up my mouth. That she still gave her talk the next night at the Kingdom Hall, undoubtedly funded by her reoccurring payments. Followed by her telling us that the assembly was the following week, and they didn't miss that either. Dad was slaughtered in the driveway. Let's go to meeting and give a talk. The oldest sister kept everyone in the truth, she says. She was mother hen. She told us she prayed for peace. They're all still Jehovah's Witnesses and Zoom often. They get together on Zoom videos and they show us. And of course, you know what they're looking forward to. You know. Which only made me so angry. We're just looking for Dad to come back. I literally had tears in my eyes thinking about what they do to people with that. It just makes me sick. I'm not going to go there. But King Lent isn't done pulling on our heartstrings yet. He shifts gears to video interviews with little people, children, all talking about paradise. It's sickening, complete with drawings behind them on the walls of their bedrooms, all paradise drawings made with crayons. Again, almost every child is Asian. I'm not sure what they're going for here. But nonetheless, I got emotional. I'm going to be honest. As you can tell, I'm emotional on this. I looked at each of these little kids talking about animals and flowers and singing forever in paradise. And folks, if you want to know if it still hurts, I realized, I used to be one of those kids. That used to be me. I used to be one of those kids. Looking forward to something that's never coming. And this little segment with the music and those cute little faces and their drawings, it really weighed on my heart. You've been warned. One young boy tells us he can't wait to race cheetahs in paradise, followed by his sister saying that Satan won't be in paradise and the fun will last forever, she says. They then show us the kids watching Caleb and Sophia, with each young child quoting not Jesus, not the Bible, no, quoting the cartoon characters, including the cartoon dad. The kids say, quote, Caleb's dad said it was good to imagine myself in paradise so I can rejoice in the hope. End quote. Then another girl saying, quote, by thinking of myself in paradise, I can be patient during hard times. End quote. Another girl they show says, I'll have a treehouse. End quote. And look, folks, disclosure, I hate these guys. I hate them. I despise these men. They're disgusting. Sorry, that's it. Blunt talk. And just as I sat there hurting for these little kids, these guys in upstate New York found a way to pull me out of it by showing one young boy saying the following, quote, I want to meet David. It's because he had so much trust in Jehovah, and how could he be so courageous? End quote. And just like that, from the anger and the tears, I began to laugh again. I began to laugh. What a cute little guy this boy is. Go check him out. However, completely different from me. Because you see, I too, back when I believed and I was growing up a Jehovah's Witness, I wanted to meet King David too. I wanted to meet him. But look, full confession, as I do on this show, I had a whole different set of questions. I didn't think about him trusting in Jehovah or how courageous he was. I had questions like this. Hey, what did you do with all those foreskins you cut off those guys' junk so you could get Saul's daughter for a wife? Or how about this one? You really loved Jonathan more than women. That's cool. Is it safe to say that you were gay? Are you on record? Because that would be okay. You're a faithful man. Or how about this one? How did you sleep at night, David, knowing that you got 70,000 people killed by the all-loving God Jehovah? He agreed to do it because you just wanted to count your troops like most of us count our fantasy football teams. Or how about this one? Very serious during puberty. Look, dude, how hot was Bathsheba? I mean, how hot was she? Come on now. Give it up. But not this little guy in the August 2025 broadcast. He, we are told, was most curious about David's trust for Jehovah. Yeah, sure he is. Sure he is. That's what he got out of King David. I can't wait, by the way, as I looked at his little smiling face, I thought, I can't wait till you read the rest of the Bible, little guy. Once you get out of the kids' books and you get into the Bible, you're going to have a few more questions for King David. Bank it. And with that, folks, there's more I could say about this broadcast. There's so much more. I got about 15, 16 minutes into it and turned it off. But Stephen Lett comes back on camera to be sure his redemption arc continues. He finishes strong by walking back that whole kids are enemy of God thing he said when he says this, quote, Jehovah loves you, young ones. He wants you, your family, and all who love him to be in paradise. End quote. And with that, nicely done, governing body and the writing committee. We see what you were trying to do here in the August 2025 JW broadcast. You were trying to save Stephen Lett from himself. It's a good call. We don't want another Tony Morris type guy blowing out matches and screaming about tight pants on men. We can't have that. King Stephen Lett, called babies enemies of God, just like Satan. And this episode features him he's trying to fix it. Of course, without apologizing. Because we know the governing body doesn't have to do that. And they're never embarrassed, remember? What a train wreck. There is still another 30 minutes or so left to the August 2025 JW broadcast, but maybe another time for this guy. Maybe another time. I'm going to lean into my high marks that I got with conclusions on the old theocratic school. I'm going to lean into that training. To summarize this episode, at least the first 15 to 20 minutes, Stephen Lett and his 10 best friends, they love kids. They love them. Look at all the video shots, references, and AI babies and more in this update. By the way, when you watch this video and you see how much we love kids, we'd appreciate it if you just don't look at what is really happening in courtrooms around the world in reference to kids and Jehovah's Witnesses. Please don't look at that. Oh, and can we just forget that whole thing about me saying kids were just like Satan? Can we forget about that too? And then finally, folks, just be generous. Just be generous. Jehovah lets you breathe. He gave you a planet. And who doesn't like dancing in the rain? We wouldn't want that to stop. So if you could now go on the website and make a reoccurring payment to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, can I spell that for you? W-A-T. Yeah. We will be in a great place. You'll be generous. And as Stephen Lett makes evident in this episode, we'll put in a good word for you during Armageddon. And well, that money's all going to build kingdom halls anyway. Yeah, go with that. Yes. Generosity. According to the Google AI definition online, generosity is the quality of being kind and unselfish, especially in giving or sharing. Oh boy. Kind and unselfish. Kids are just like Satan, and you should send us your money. The governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses are indeed very generous. I want to thank you for being here this week. Wherever you may be well.